This is Abnormal Entertainment.
2, 3, 4. Walked into the tunnel just to find the light. Hunted for old demons, looking for a fight. Looked up at the stars, seemed to go forever. There must be a way, it all fits together. Fell into the quicksand, held on to the vines. Never could quite color, stay within the lines. Feels like I have wings, I can fly wherever. This is just a way, it all fits together. Finally saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Gonna share my journey to small and large masses. Give up on my life, no sir, me never. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza, and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. Please follow me at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find me at I am Daniel G. Garza or Little Mexican on the other social pages. Please like I Put It Together podcast on Facebook so you can be notified of new episodes, things about my guests, new pictures, whatever they're doing, I will post it on there so you can keep up with them. And that's where you can go to find links and information on how to get in touch with them. This morning, which has been a long time coming, it seems like not only were we separated by countries, but it seemed like the universe was trying very hard not to let us work together. Ross McCreery, good morning, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing really well. Going through a little bit right now, but I mean, that's the way we advocate, right? Got some trials and stuff going on right now, but doing great. Other than that, I'm glad we could come together finally. It was a long time coming. It seemed like every time we were shooting text back and forth, and it was can't do it today.
I will admit that as I posted on my podcast page, there'd been a lot of family things that went on, and just my energy and my time was all off, and I'll admit that a couple of times I overslept, and I forgot. I wake up and there'll be a message like, are we doing this today? I'm like, oh, damn it.
Yeah, don't worry. I won't hold it against you.
So this was a long distance love affair finally coming to fruition. You're still my favorite Canadian, so that works.
Hey, that works for me. That works for you.
So how are you doing? What's going on up there?
You know what? Doing really, really well. Feeling like a lot of what I'm working towards with my particular disease, we're finally being heard in our rare community. You'll hear me refer to it as the rare community because the illness that I was diagnosed with is rare. And so, we're finally starting to gain some traction, and we're starting to finally be heard as a voice of advocates, not only within the community that I was diagnosed within, but within the chronic pain world, and within the rare disease, world. So, really, really good. A lot of positive going on right now.
So for those of you, listening and or watching, Ross is an advocate for CPR.
Nope, CRPS.
CRPS.
It's a mouthful, and we always go by the acronym because complex regional pain syndrome is what the actual title to the disease is. It's also been referred to as RSD, but reflex sympathy disorder. But and the little tidbit for you there is that, and I'm not going to remember off the top of my head, but it's actually been renamed, I want to say 135 times since its inception of its first symptoms and when they found out when this disease sort of came to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for people who don't really understand, it does fall under the chronic pain group.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you that don't quite understand it falls under the chronic pain. And I met Ross. Let me just tell him where we met so that people can get an idea. For those of you that have been following me for a couple of years now, you know that I go to the Healthy Voices conference every year we were doing it in Chicago for the last couple of years. It'll be in Dallas next year. I'm excited because that's my hometown. That's where I grew up, in Dallas.
Nice.
So for those of you through Janssen Pharmaceuticals, who sponsors the conference, that's where I met Ross. Now, because my dates get all messed up. Did we meet 2 years ago on the 17th one or yes?
Yeah, we met 2 years ago because that last year was my second year.
My too.
So yeah, it would have been it would have been 2 years ago. Yeah.
So we met 2 years ago, but we didn't really connect all that much. We didn't talk that much. I don't remember.
No, we didn't. Yeah.
It wasn't until this conference that were you part of the podcast workshop?
I was supposed to be in your podcast workshop, and I actually ended up, because I was doing badly that afternoon, I ended up actually going back up to my room and just kind of taking a break. So, yeah.
So let me give a small plug to the Healthy Voices workshop because we were going like, what are you talking about? So Healthy Voices is a conference that Janssen Pharmaceuticals through Johnson & Johnson puts on every year for advocates from across the world. So there are people from all over, not just our neighbors to the north, but also we've had people from Japan and Panama, China, England, Australia. So we get people from all over coming to the States to talk about chronic illnesses or any kind of sickness or disability. So you have people with pain problems. You have people like me with HIV, also cancer, diabetes, mental health. So I always tell people that Healthy Voices is the place where the more illnesses, sicknesses, and disabilities you have, the cooler you are, because everybody will know you because you go across the board. Yeah. So I make it a point every year to come back with one thing more on my list. Like, what else can I do this year?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's where Ross and I met, and then everybody there. I feel like everybody at the conference just got to know me without me knowing them.
Well, you're hard not to know. Like, I think a lot of us, you've started to do a lot. Like you've taken your advocacy to the next level, right? And you have, kudos to you in that you're really putting yourself out there and you're becoming known. And so I think people are seeking you out, right? Because the work that you're doing is amazing work and work that all of us want to try and emulate,
Aw, thank you.
Yeah, no, so I think a lot of it, has to do with that. Like those of us that are relatively new in our advocacy, even though I know I'm not but really I'm a virgin, so to speak, in my advocacy work because it's only been within the last couple of years, right? So no, I think a lot of us are looking for that wisdom and knowledge that only others that have been dealing with stuff, for a longer period of time can give us.
And again, just to plug what the conference is about, and this, for those of you who are like, well, this is about Ross. Yes, it's about Ross, and this has to do with it. This is about, the conference brings together people who are very active in the community, in whatever group they're part of, but also people who are active in social media, so people who are putting themselves out there. So you everybody who is in this conference has done something on social media, whether it be the pages that I mentioned, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. You're putting yourself out there to get the word out to as many people as possible. So for those of you thinking like, what is Russ talking about? It's only because I've taken over social media the best I can to put out as much information as I can about HIV, mental health, in my case, anal cancer. So thank you. I appreciate it. You do not even know how much I needed to hear that this morning. It's not about me, but I've been going through my own doubts about advocacy and what am I doing? Like, what am I doing in this world? So thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, and that's like, just to add to that is that, that's a lot of what the conference is about too, right? Is coming together as advocates and encouraging one another, lifting each of us up, because we do have those moments where we sit there and say, what am I doing? Am I really making a difference? And in my case, it's the same thing. I come from a very small province in Canada, or I should say, we have a population of 1 million, but I think our city only has 185,000. So, and we'll get into it later, but, it's for a conference like Healthy Voices, I can't say enough about how coming together with all those advocates really encourages me to do the work that I'm doing in my community.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good segue to get into your story. So, Ross McCreery, tell us, sir, how do you put it together?
How do I put it together? Like we've already talked about a little bit, I was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome. I was diagnosed 13 years ago, and strangely enough, nobody here knows about the disease. And there's discrepancy around it. Like here in Canada, we don't actually technically call it a disease. They call it a syndrome. In the US, they've actually now made it, a disease. But yeah, diagnosed 13 years ago, and really just my world flipped up was really flipped upside down. I had just at that point was just starting a family. We had just traveled back from China with our first daughter that we had adopted, and about 6 months later, I had a simple surgery done, and that certain simple surgery sort of set the tone for what was about to happen for the next 2 years, which was trying to seek diagnosis after that. I won't get into huge detail, but what happened was after this simple surgery, my arm basically started to balloon up and with swelling, and my wife just happened to be a nurse and said, this isn't post-operative swelling. So we went back to the general surgeon that did the surgery, and he basically dismissed me and said, no, it's just, post operative swelling. And that really set off a 2-year journey because nobody here could diagnose me. I was looked at for DVTs. I was looked at for MS. I was looked at for every disease under the sun. Nobody could diagnose it. So I ended up actually flying out to another province to go see a doctor out there. And within 2 minutes of being in his office, he diagnosed me because he was familiar with it. And sort of the rest is history over that 13 years. But really that set off, I want to say that really set off something within me, because my story is one that several people I'm realizing now are living here. They can't find diagnosis, and so they have nowhere to turn. I often refer that where we live, it's like you feel like you're on a little island, and you're alone, and no support system. There's no proper education when it comes to this disease. And so people just don't know where to turn. And so, it just kind of set a fire off within me to say, I'm obviously jumping ahead and we can get into, some of the in-between stuff, but I went through a lot over the last probably 10 years, 10 years, where I went through a bout of really bad depression. I went through a lot of mental health issues in trying to come to terms with this, because all of a sudden my life gets flipped upside down, right?
Okay, so before we go too much ahead, let's start off with, you had the surgery. There were some symptoms coming up, the swelling, but what else was going on that you were like, this is not right? Like, because we know our bodies. People think it's not until after your surgery that you really start to know your body.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I didn't know I had this little bump here, and even scars. You're like, I didn't realize I had a scar here. And I chuck it up to the fact that sometimes you're in bed post-surgery and you really have nothing else to do but pay attention to yourself.
Yeah.
What were some of the other symptoms that you were noticing that were like, okay, this isn't right?
Yeah, I started getting really bad. I mean, one of the primary symptoms of CRPS is that I started getting a really bad searing, burning pain that started in my hand and sort of moved up the arm. And so when that started, I knew something, like I was getting burning, stabbing pains, and I was getting all of that. But then I started noticing that there was a waxiness to my skin, and I was losing hair on the arm, and there was atrophic changes starting to happen with the fingers. All these things didn't make sense, right? All these things just, I was like, no, something is just not right here. And, it just astounded me when I started to understand that there was something very wrong, the number of people or the number of offices that I sort of pounded on the doors and said, something's not right. And there was a lot of lack of education, is what I like to say, in recognizing the symptoms. So, I started experiencing a lot of those things, and that pain, what a lot of people need to understand is that it's not pain where you just, like, if you fall off something and you get a bruise and a cut and it hurts for a little bit. This is pain that lasts 24/7. It doesn't go.
Right.
That is what people need to really understand. It comes and goes, where, like today, my pain can be good. Tomorrow, I might be in the corner of my room crying and rocking in the fetal position because I can't take the pain.
Yeah. I always tell people that, even after all these years, well, actually not even after all these years, I live at my standard is a 10% pain level to start off. That's my start. Where everybody starts off with a great day, my great day is like, oh, okay, it's just a little uncomfortable today. And you just learn to function from then on.
You do. Yeah, right? You do. You really do. And it's hard to explain that to people because, I say to people, my pain threshold has gone up to here, right? Like, you all of a sudden, you just learn how to function with it. And people say, well, how does that work? But you do. I don't know. I just, it's our body's way of adapting to it, right?
Yeah. I'll say this from my years of experience with being diagnosed with AIDS, and this will relate a little bit. I had neuropathy almost from the very beginning, so I've lived with the tingling in my legs and my toes for 18 years now. That's just standard. I mean, it's not uncommon in the middle of the summer, to be 100 degrees outside and my toes are freezing. It's just normal. I don't think about it anymore. And people are like, "Oh, did you want something warmer?" Like, this is good. Like, it's not going to get warmer. So it's,
well, and that's like us here, where when I'm entering into that time of year where most of us that deal with chronic pain, we're around the corner is our temperatures that we're going to drop to, 35 below or 40 below, which is bone chilling for the best of us. Right. And at the same time though, for those of us that deal with chronic pain, what a lot of people just don't understand is that our pain escalates a lot with those temperature fluctuations. And so, for me, it's not uncharacteristic that I'm going to feel the real throbbing and searing start to get worse when temperatures affect it. It's just something you function with, right? It's just sort of an expectation of that's what the disease has created.
So moving forward a little bit, so you're going from doctor to doctor, because we mentioned a little bit about the mental health part. When I was before I was diagnosed with cancer, anal cancer, and I was very bloated from the tumor, not being able to go to the bathroom, people just thought I was getting fat. People were just criticizing everything I was eating, and they were like, well, maybe you just change your diet. Maybe you should get a diuretic. Juice. You should juice. And I have such a thing for people who tell me about juicing. It starts to get mental, or I started thinking, maybe I am doing something wrong. Did you go through anything like that?
I went through a lot of that. That's the first, right off the hop. I can't say how many times I walked out of offices feeling like, well, it's all me, what we get all the time, and you probably get all, is, well, it's all in your head, right? That was something, and you have to bring it up because that's something that several of the offices that I walked into, if the physician didn't know this particular condition, which probably 25 doctors later, that's how many doctors I'd had to go see before deciding, no, my province isn't the answer. Each of those offices that I walked into, well, it's all in your head. Well, how does that affect a person when they walk out? Because you start, someone made reference yesterday at a function that I was at for a lunch, that you start if it's repeated enough, you start believing it, right? Yeah. And that is really where I was at, was I started believing that first year, oh, well, maybe it is all in my head. Maybe I am, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just thinking, I'm overthinking it. And maybe that surgery just needs time to heal, or maybe that pain is something that I'm doing too much, and post-operatively I'm doing way too much. And so I'm causing it, right? Yeah. And you start going through those things in your head. And that was really where I was at. I'll never forget work turning around and saying to me, well, it's just a hand, work was a tough, it was a tough separation from my employer, because they started saying, well, it's just your hand that's affected. And I got down on myself, right? I thought, well, what? Yeah, maybe it is just me. Yeah, it's hard to explain, It really is hard to explain, because there was a whole host of different things that I started thinking that might be me.
Yeah, and So at home, let's bring this down to home. How does it start affecting your home life and your family?
There is no normal home life anymore, right? That's what it comes down to. There's a lot, too much, obviously, and maybe it's a topic to bring up because I often, there's a lot of people that I've started working with in regards to chronic parents, right? And any of us that have kids and family life like that, where we have to function with our illnesses around family. How it affected my family life. I just actually gave a speech in Montreal relating to this, in that what happened was our roles were flipped. I became the stay-at-home dad because we had one child already here, and we, a year later traveled to get our second child from Ethiopia. But what happened was the roles were reversed, right? My wife ended up going back to work because for the most part, my disability covers all of our bills, but there's still a little bit of a shortfall, right? And so she went back to work, and I became the stay-at-home dad and had to function as a stay-at-home dad. Tough to do when you're dealing with when you're dealing with chronic pain, because there was a lot of different things at that time that we had to work through, shall we say. The kids couldn't be that one of my symptoms is that noise or large groups and a lot of noise that's created by those large groups used to be a really bad trigger for me, and it would set my pain off. Not getting.
Oh wow!
So I had to learn how to manage that. So we come from a very large family where, just on my wife's side, we have, I think now we're at 55, with the in-laws and kids and everybody. So as you know, Christmases and holidays and that stuff are big gatherings. And so I had to learn how to navigate that. I had to learn how to, spend my 10 minutes or 15 minutes with everybody, eat dinner and socialize for that dinner. And then I had to sort of say, okay, I'm going to go off on my own. And I had to go and, go to a quiet place and manage, right? And manage those symptoms that were starting to all of a sudden elevate.
Yeah.
Or the kids, they can't be kids, right? They can't be kids. Like you hear, a typical childhood for most kids is to run around the house screaming and yelling, and you can't do that around dad, right? If you want to scream and yell, you got to go to you've got to go to the basement, or you've got to go and do it outside and do it away from dad. And so stuff like that was really influential and effective. Holidays, even you have to manage holidays around my disability, right? So, we love holidaying as a family, but we have to look for holidays. Okay, well, what can dad do if he's not feeling good that day? So we usually get a place that we can get a place that we know that I can just hole up in and I'll be happy with and enjoy my holiday, and they go off and do the adventure things or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I still today, because I sometimes I'll have to take a little rest in the afternoon. Somewhere in the middle of the day, I'll just take a little nap, and it could vary. Sometimes 20 minutes, I'm ready to go, and other times I'm like, I need a whole hour just to recoup the batteries. And it used to bother me so much when people would be like, oh, it must be nice to take naps in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
and I would think, screw you. I wish I didn't have to nap. I could get so much more done. I could jump up and just do things and go from one thing to another. And there are days, when I can pull a 14-hour day and not need a rest. But other times I'm like, I'm going to stop for a minute and just chill for a bit.
Yeah. And that's the same way as it is with me, right? It's people didn't understand, why am I leaving a function, half an hour into the function, sorry, I made my appearance, but I can't. I can't.
Hello, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.
Right. It's. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying. But you need to but people make you feel guilty for that, right? And like people don't understand it, and and to this day, there's when a person, I'm pretty sensitive to that. Because when a person doesn't understand it and dismisses you because of it, it cuts right to the heart. And I say, wish I could handle it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just bring this up. Like this last conference, this last Healthy Voices conference, I had a podcast workshop where I had a couple of our colleagues that were there helping me put this together. And it was a very interactive workshop. But when I was done, my energy was done. I was like, and I'm not one at conferences to take a rest. I will go.
Yeah.
I prep. I train for conferences before those are my marathons. People are like, are you going to walk? Are you going to do that? I'm like, I've got conferences to go to. That's my marathon.
Yeah.
And I felt so guilty for going up to taking a nap. And when I came back down, people were like, hey, we missed you here. We missed you there. And I was embarrassed to say, oh, I went to take a nap. Yeah. I said, oh, I had a conference call and I did. I told people I had a conference call I needed to take. So I had to go take some time for that because I was so embarrassed. And I will say that the whole I'm Daniel Garza concept, I really started to believe it. Like, I'm Daniel Garza. I can do anything until I can't. And I will say for everybody listening, it's like, you're going to say, oh, you shouldn't be thinking that way. But as a man, I should be able to do everything. I should be able to do anything I want to.
Yeah, well, and that's when you, just to sort of segue into something for a second on that, is that at this latest conference that I was talking at, it was actually gender roles, and through my illness, how those gender roles have changed. And, so you talk about being a man and you should be able to do all the, that very much was how I was feeling when I was first diagnosed, just those simple things like, okay, I'm supposed to, what our plan was going into all of this with our family was I had worked really hard over 15 years or so to get myself into a position where, financially and job-wise, I could support the whole family. And so my wife could fulfill her dream of being a stay-at-home mom. And all of a sudden, when that gets flipped around, my role, I can't provide financially, although I do, right? But it was that I can't be that 100% financial supporter that I want to be. I can't do a lot of the simple things around a house, like replacing a faucet or, because I don't have the use of my other hand. And so it makes it very difficult to do those tasks. So there's a lot of different things, you're supposed to be that man that does all the outdoor work and, although not, it's not in any way, is it, are those things for just one gender and the man, right? It's where I'm just going back to how I was raised as, and my father raised me that way.
Right.
So the guilt that came with that was, as a result of being raised that way is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, it's because I'm 47 and this whole new breaking down the genders and the fluids and the asexuals and pansexuals. I'm like, I don't understand that. I don't get it. Back in my day, you were a man or you were a woman. And especially in my case, being a gay man, I always feel like I'm one-upping. I have to go for the double dare so that I can prove to you that not only am I a man, but as a gay man, I can do anything you can do. And damn it, I'm going to do it better.
Yeah.
And then you add the, any illness or pains because for those of you listening who, are followers of Ross's who are listening to the show, I come from the HIV, cancer survivor, ostomy, mental health issues, all those together. And you take one, it's hard. You take one of those, it's hard. Any one of those. And then you put them all together and it's just, it doesn't become just a wall to jump over. It's a wall with wire and glass. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lion on the other side that you have to fight. Yeah. And then when you're done with that, you have to write an essay to tell people how everything went.
Yeah.
So, let's speed up a little bit because I think we've covered pretty much where your base is.
Yeah.
How do you get from, okay, I'm going through all this to, I need to talk about this?
I held it in for the longest time. I held in my feelings. I held in, how I was very, and when I say I held him in for a long time, I'm talking about, within the first 3 years or so of my diagnosis, I was just kind of suppressing things. But then as I tried to seek help and tried to get the help that I needed through programs and through the medical community and so forth, and with all those doors closing, there was just sort of this anger that built within me that said, my voice isn't being heard, right? My voice isn't being heard and I'm not being heard with what I deal with. And then I started doing all this research, right? And I started seeing things that were making me even more angry, and that, 1% of all funding towards research in Canada, 1% of funding goes to chronic pain for research every year. But then of that 1%, my specific rare disease, what does it get? It gets nothing. So I started, there was just this frustration and this anger that started saying, no, I need to be vocal. And as I became vocal and as I put myself out there, people started coming to me to say, who do I turn to? What can I do to help? And I just like, wow, like that was that light bulb moment, when that light bulb turned on and said, I'm doing something right. I'm fighting for a basic standard of healthcare that I need. And, so it was just, that was kind of how things, I like to refer to it as this anger that kind of built up within myself, that I was being too quiet and I wasn't pushing for answers, and I wasn't pushing for a lot of the different things that needed to start happening,
Yeah. I think a lot of us fall into advocacy not by accident, but we kind of start, how can I say this? It's like there's this hole that's our size. Like there's this shape that's already molded that's our size. And we're kind of wandering around, and then all of a sudden we just fall into it. You're like, oh, this feels comfortable. And I refer to the wandering around as just collecting information for ourselves.
Yeah.
Christian, my partner, and I, after my cancer, discovered that there were all these little secrets that hospitals won't tell you, nurses don't talk about, doctors don't bring up.
Yeah.
But you start talking to other people.
Right.
Or you just go, wait a minute, they didn't talk about this, but we know that that's there. And then you start asking, and before you know it, people are like, what happened when you were going through this? And you're like, when did I become an expert?
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, another little segue or plug for Healthy Voices was that when I went to Healthy Voices that first year, it was like, wow, I'm meeting all these people that, and it's like, yeah, you know, like all the stuff that they were doing, but you're right, you fall upon all this information, and so Healthy Voices was falling upon more information, and just out of that came this hunger to want to do more and find out more and advocate more, you know, and I'll never forget walking away from Healthy Voices that first year where they said, you know, it's life changing, right? It's, you know, you're going to walk away from this conference and it's life changing. I walked away and it was life changing, right?
Yeah.
It was, I came back with this fire in my belly, right? To say, I'm going to start finding out more and doing more, you know, what I'm doing there is not enough. And so I started Crips Awareness Day here in the province and had the province. I use anger because in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep one night, I got really ticked off and pissed at this disease and said, I'm going to write our premier a letter and ask him to declare a day of awareness here in the province of Saskatchewan. It was a 1-year journey to do that, but you know what? It was worth it. You know, in the end, I basically fired off that letter to him, and what I thought was falling on deaf ears 2 months later came a response that said, this is a really important initiative and I'm going to sign off on it. And I'm going to declare that for the province of Saskatchewan. You know, and it was like that. Then from that point, it was like, okay, what I'm doing, you know, is important. And as I made that, a larger network of advocates such as yourself, right? It just became apparent that I couldn't sit here and be affected by this disease without advocating for it, you know, like I do.
Is it ever enough?
That's a loaded question. No, it's never enough. It's never enough. And that's probably my problem is that, you push too hard, right? You push too hard and then you realize that you have to pull back a bit. But I think that's because we say that it's never enough.
Over the years, how has the support, not from the community, but from your family, how has that changed or adapted?
It's flipped. It's flipped. I can't speak.
Flipped it?
It's flipped 360. You know, my family has become my biggest supporter. They've learned, you know, I mean, I like to say that this has really been a journey with the entire family, right? Because they've had to deal with their own stuff. And, so, you know, as a caregiver, which is what my wife is to me, she's had to go through her own issues. And my kids obviously have to go through their issues. It's really brought us closer together as a family, right? We've learned how to tackle this. I mean, without getting really long-winded, we've really learned how to tackle this as a family, and we've educated ourselves, and I guess it's given us a bit of a further reach, where my wife can talk to the caregiver side of it, and everything that she goes through. It's just given us this bigger voice as a family to turn around and say, as a family that deals with rare disease, we can take this beast on together. Does that sort of answer it?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Because when Christian, my partner, and I met, I was already a long-term survivor when it came to HIV. Mm-hmm. After a couple of years together is when I was diagnosed with cancer, and he didn't have to. He became my caregiver during the process. So he learned, much like your wife, he learned that side of cancer, that side of caring. So he has a whole set of tools and information that I don't have because I wasn't the caregiver. But his focus on the world and the way he looks at other people has definitely changed, and the way he looks at me has changed. Mm-hmm. And we became, I'll say this for everybody listening, when I was starting chemo, my nurse told us, you're about to go on a very hard journey. As a couple, this will either make you or break you. If you make it to the end and you're still together, because we would laugh at the first appointment, we were laughing and joking. She's like, if you make it to the last appointment with this kind of energy, you will make it through anything.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I probably didn't explain it that way. Is that, has it strengthened my marriage? Oh yeah. Has it strengthened my relationship with my kids? Oh yeah, definitely. People now see us in a completely different light as a couple. They see a couple that have become very strong and can get through anything that life throws at them, right? There was a lot of uncertainty when I was first diagnosed of what was going to transpire, for the rest of my life type thing. And not just my life, but our family life, right? And now, now people come to us and say, you know what, how do you guys do it? How do you guys manage to fight through something so horrific, which it was at times? Like a week and a half ago, a lot of people know that I've been relatively quiet on social media the last week and a half or 2 weeks. I ended up in hospital a couple of weeks ago. My pain got to the point where, probably within the last 10 years, I haven't had a flare up this bad. And it got to the point where I couldn't control it. So I ended up in hospital, as so often those of us probably, do when we can't control it. And I look at how my wife and family were through that evening, which was a really, really tough evening to get through, because you look at your kids' faces and you see the tears streaming down their face because they see dad's in pain. But yet they come over to me, and my youngest, who I didn't expect it from at 11 years old, she comes over to me. She says, I'll pray for you, Dad, because I'm scared about you. Power, right? My wife stands with me through the course of that evening when I'm laying across a bench in the entrance to the emergency room, because they didn't understand and wouldn't give me even a jerry chair or anything to try and keep me comfortable. So it forced me to go and lay across a bench. But she, through the whole course of waiting for 3 hours or 4 hours to get into a bed, continued to try and make me laugh and to try and make me, to try and make me smile and get strength, right?
Yeah.
It's strength and so that's something that you very rarely see when you're first enter, when your world gets flipped upside down like this. That's something that you're in panic mode, right? When that first diagnosis hits you. So, that's how it's changed us, right? That's how it's changed us. We've become an incredibly strong family.
And there is, this sounds so cliche and so whatever, but there is such healing power in laughter.
Yeah.
And in unity and just in the community and just feeling like, that they can't do anything to take away the pain or the hurt or the discomfort. But the fact that and this goes for anybody who's out there listening who is a caregiver, who is taking care of somebody, who is new to this whole advocacy thing. There's nothing you can do to take away the pain, the hurt, the discomfort, whatever it is. Don't try. You don't have to try to take away from it because it's not going to happen. So you're only going to feel defeated, and we're going to feel bad for you because you're trying so hard.
Yeah.
So go the other side of the spectrum and just be as normal or as abnormal as you can in the other side. Make the things light, make things funny. Because I know that for me in the hospital, when I was in the hospitals, I was like, I had a couple of rules. One was people were not allowed to say, I'm sorry for what you're going through. Yeah. Because as an advocate, I was like, no, this is a learning lesson. I'm going to get something out of this and I'll be able to move on. We're good. So stop saying you're sorry for me. And I would tell people people would come into the house and they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, did you do this to me? They're like, what? I'm like, did you give me cancer? They're like, well, no. I'm like, then stop saying you're sorry. It's not your fault. Like, stop.
Right.
And people were not allowed to ask me, how are you feeling? Because I would tell them, like, I have cancer. How do you think I'm feeling?
Yeah. Well, you bring up a great point because every person, all your friends, you walk into a party, you walk into a work function or whatever it be, right? You walk into that function and all of a sudden those people, they come up, how are you doing? How are you feeling? You know what? Treat me like normal. How do you think I'm going to feel? Right? And there's a lot of times that I wanted to lash out like that and say, how do you think I feel? I feel like crap. I'm sorry, but you know what? Chronic pain isn't fun. I'm not having a hell of a good time right now because it hurt. But yet someone, I get, I get it. I get what you're saying. Just treat me as you normally would.
Yeah, when I was first diagnosed, for those of you that are just now following us, the day I was diagnosed with cancer was the day I started a video blog. So I did a video blog for 31 days of treatment, 31 days of treatment during radiation and chemo. Anyway, but the first days after people found out, I would go somewhere and people were like, oh, I saw your post. How are you feeling? And usually I say something smart. So I'm like, well, it's a cancer up my ass. Oh. It's this big ball, so it feels like an elephant is crawling up in there. Oh. That's pretty much how I feel. People were like, what do I say? And I would burst out laughing because I was like, that vision for me was like picturing this elephant trying to crawl into my butt. It was just hilarious.
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't realize I wear a glove, right? And just because of the swelling that I have to keep down. And it's a conversation piece, right? When you walk into the supermarket and you've got everything on you're unloading your shopping cart and so forth. And the first thing that comes out of the cashier's mouth is, "Oh, did you burn your hand?" Or like, "Is it your business at all?" Like, but I'll usually be polite and I'll say, "No, I was diagnosed with a disease." And they'll want me to elaborate on it a little bit. And it's, people, and it's like, well,
That's a good segue. We become walking information sites.
Yep.
Because you can't just say what you do. Because then all of a sudden it's like, people want to click buttons on you and be like, "Well, tell me more." And
right.
where do I go from that? Well, and then all of a sudden they're like, "My uncle had something."
Yeah. Yeah. Then they try to relate it to, and that's where it's a slippery slope often, because you get that person that says, "Oh yeah, I know somebody that cut their foot and got pain for, that lasted for," I'm like, I don't think you really understand the beast that I'm dealing with here, but
But that's the give and take. We become advocates to have information, and then when we're out doing our regular stuff, I guess what I'm trying to say is, an advocacy hat is not one you take off.
Right. And I think what you do is, I've learned over the years, what you do is, I've stopped being angry towards those questions, and I've started answering those questions, right? I've started educating, because as advocates, that's what we do, right? We take every opportunity that we get to start advocating. And so I've had to sort of look at it and say, you know what, here's an opportunity that's being thrown at me. Don't dismiss it, but educate and use that opportunity.
Yeah, I just carry my business cards, because I have business cards for my podcast, my advocacy, and my spiritual work that I do. Yeah. So it depends on what I'm doing. I'm like, here I gotta go, but here's my card. Call me, and I will give you more information. And usually 9 out of 10, I will get an email or a friend request on one of the social sites, and then I'm able to do it. So I lost track of time. I think we're going a little overboard, but only because we started a little late. I think we started like at 15 after the hour.
Yeah.
So we're just hitting the hour. So, but I'm going to steal a couple more minutes from you, since it took so long for us to finally get online.
Sure.
This is about the time where I ask my guests to share some words of wisdom with my listeners. So, Ross McCreery, what words of wisdom do you have for everybody listening?
Now he's putting me on the spot.
That's what this show's about. Put it together.
You know what? Don't be scared to step out. Don't be scared to step out and speak. Nothing that you say. I always try to give people wisdom and say, there's always a piece of knowledge or wisdom that you can give somebody in whatever situation that you're facing. So because I come across a lot of advocates that are either very new or newly diagnosed, and they don't know where to start. And so what I say is, first of all, go out and find a community. Find a community that you can get involved with. You're not alone. And so go out and find that community. And, you hear people say, well, I have nothing to give with, whatever illness or disease or whatever it is that they're facing, with illness. They very frequently feel like that they have nothing, to give. Whereas I encourage people, you know what? You do. There's that one person that you're going to be able to reach. And if you reach one person, then you made a difference in that, you've made a difference in someone's life. And that's kind of what I live by. If I can touch one person and affect a person, affect a person in how they continue their journey through their illness, then I've got to be happy. I've got to be happy with what I've done, right? So yeah, I mean, try and reach out to people.
Okay,
we're good.
So we were talking about. Sorry, guys, we paused there for a second. We were talking about touching people, not literally.
You know what? Yeah, like I guess that would be what if you can reach out and be a positive influence and reach one person and help them in their journey, then that's
that's worth it.
Yeah, that's
so. Okay, so these final questions are my Barbara Walters moment. So, who was and was there somebody that pushed you, touched you, motivated you to really put yourself out there and be the face of or the voice of?
You know what? Probably my wife. She saw something in me when I first got sick. And I'll never forget it. We walked away from that doctor's office after getting that diagnosis, and she said to me, "You're strong and you're going to do something you're going to use this for something special." And, she pushed me to not be, dragged down by this, but to go out and make, that pseudo make lemonade out of lemons, right?
We talked a little bit about fears. What's your biggest fear right now?
Wow, that's a loaded question. My biggest fear right now is that I'm not doing enough. That I'm not doing enough. My biggest fear right now is probably moving forward with some of the big plans that I see in trying to help others in their journeys. Something within me is saying, there's that fear that's nibbling at the back of my mind saying, you can't do it, right? You can't do it. And, you don't have a loud enough voice, and you don't, there are things that do sometimes nibble at your brain, and I have to get over it. That's plain and simple, right? I've got to go on with those big plans.
In the big book of and I'm gonna say that the letter's wrong again. No, just say it for me.
CRPS.
CRPS, okay. I want to throw a D in there, maybe because it's my name. I just want to throw a D in there somewhere. CRPS. So in the big book of CRPS, when we look up your name, what's going to be under your bio?
Wow. Inspirational. Inspiring others and empowering others is really what, I want to inspire people that they don't have to be their disability, that they can do anything that they set their mind, that they can set their mind to anything they do and accomplish anything that they want to do. And so I want to inspire others and empower others to do that.
That's pretty awesome. I like that. I'm going to have to clip that and put it out there as a clip. That's pretty cool. What's next? What's going on next for you?
Next for me is I've got a couple of other speaking engagements within our medical community here in our province. We've been successful in getting the medical profession or society here in the province of Saskatchewan to actually put curriculum or build curriculum into their second year med students program. And so I'm speaking at a few functions with regards to that. And probably secondly, I'm sort of involved with another organization with Bill C-81, which is basically accessibility for all Canadians. It's a bill that's being passed and pushed through our legislature right now. And so I'm involved through an organization with that in just trying to put a few changes into that bill before it passes. So I've got some work with that. The usual circuit of just pushing, getting ready for Crips Awareness Day here tomorrow, that we're going to be having on Saturday night. And and we're just working hard on advocating for this disease,
As I listen to you, I'm like, oh, that's all you have going on? Well, look at you. Because it's always such a loaded question, and I find it, I find myself, I usually ask this question to people who come and tell their stories about just their journey.
Yeah.
I end up asking people also who are advocates, but I find it funny that sometimes the answers are different. Because when people ask me, like, so what's on your agenda? Oh, well, this and this and this and this, and then I'm going to do this and this and this. And they're like, oh my God, that's for the month? I'm like, no, that's for the week.
Yeah. Well, it's wearing those hats. It's wearing multiple hats, right? That's what we do.
Yeah.
You have to pull it back. You have to pull it back sometimes, and I'm trying to pull it back right now. I'm trying to deal with a lot. I've got a lot of health stuff going on right now, and I'm trying to. I've sort of pushed a few things back right now, just to try and get through some of that health stuff, because I'm still dealing with the hospital visit that I was dealing with a few weeks ago. With some new symptoms and so forth that have come up, and so I'm kind of just taking a little bit of time for myself right now, and then we'll get back into those things once I feel up to it.
Which is why I so appreciate you taking the time to visit with me. I really appreciate it. We talked more in this last conference, and I'll admit too that there was just, I think you were wearing the glove also, so it kind of caught my attention.
Yeah.
But one of the cool things about advocacy conferences is that what other people find, what you find insulting from other people on the real world, in an advocacy group, it's really loving curiosity. It's like,
yeah,
I want to know about you. Like, what's going on with you? Why this? Why do you have that? And not that, I can't say not that it's in my spectrum, but I'm like, well, I want to know why this guy, who are you? Like, what is this? Is that a bionic hand? I think I mentioned that. I think I did mention that to you. It's like, is that your bionic hand or something? I think that's why you became my favorite person.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
I say a lot of stupid crap when I'm in conferences. That,
don't we all? I mean, but it, it's an instant family in the advocacy. When you go to some of these conferences, right? Like you all have, even though you come from different spectrums and you come from with different diseases or illnesses, you all go through the same things. A lot of the same things. You deal with those mental health issues. You deal with those, you can just keep rifling them off, right? And so there's that instant connection of how we are in the advocacy world.
This is and I've said this at other conferences, so the people know about this. This is the conference. Again, I feel like I'm kissing up. Well, if anybody from Healthy Voices is listening, I do want to come back this year. But that aside, this is one of those conferences like where you're surrounded with a bunch of sick people, and we're not just sick physically, we're sick mentally because we've been through so much.
Yeah.
And we can make fun of it now. And that's the beautiful thing about it. So before we go, let's not forget, how can people get a hold of you? What's your information?
People you have multiple ways of getting a hold of me. People can reach me through Twitter. Roscoe006 is my handle. I know, original. I'm going to have to change that. I wanted to use Painfully Optimistic, but there were too many characters. So anyway, that's how it originated. They can get me through my website, which is painfullyoptimistic.com. So that I have, so they can feel free to email me that way. They can reach me on Facebook and at Painfully Optimistic. So those are the major media platforms. I do have Instagram as well, that people can reach me out or reach me on, but my main platforms are Twitter and Facebook and my main website.
So, and as usual for everybody watching and or listening, you know that you can, as soon as this episode airs, you can find all the information on our Facebook page as well as on the YouTube page. All the links will be at the bottom. So if you're watching this, scroll down and you will find all the information to get a hold of Ross. A little insight, whenever we message, I always tell Ross like that. We're having this secret affair because we always end up talking in the middle of the night somehow. And I'm like, don't tell your wife we're still talking. You become one of my favorite Canadians, and I don't have a whole lot of them, so you're it. Now, I'm noticing the orange and the orange band. Is there a purpose for the orange?
There is. The actual color for CRPS or CRPS, I've been told not to say CRPS because it makes reference to a certain affiliation. So people tell me to say CRPS. I can say CRPS up here in Canada, but not down there.
Yes.
But what you can't see is this is actually the Outrun. Look at that. This is I'm not even going to say it because, but this is the Outrun Rare shirt that, and it's sort of tied into the Rare Disease Foundation. And there was a run that happened across Canada that was through an organization called Outrun Rare, but in awareness of rare disease. But the color of CRPS and chronic pain and November that Barbie and Ken obviously
they've been on the show.
Yeah, through International Pain Foundation. They do November. So the color of orange and yellow and fire basically are the colors to this disease because of the fact that, it is a nerve pain, burning, searing type pain, right? So hence the orange.
Awesome. And you have that band on your arm?
I do. It's this just happens to be, the one that I wear for the Rare Disease Foundation. Awesome. But again, orange, orange really is the color of chronic pain.
So, there was one more question I knew I had. And for those of you, again, watching and or listening, I left my laptop at my partner's house and I was working on my Surface tablet, which it decided to update this morning as I turned it on. So I'm on my phone, so I don't know how this is going to show on video later, but I'm on my phone, and of course I don't have my notebook, so I don't have anything written down, and it's just one of those crazy mornings. So my questions are all over the place. So one more question before we go, and if you could go back and talk to Ross right before the diagnosis, the original diagnosis, what would you tell him?
Wow. You caught me on that one. I would say, I've really discovered who I am. And I would say look at yourself before, prior to what really matters to you in life. What matters, because this illness has really made me look at and appreciate the simple things in my life, my family, my friends, what really matters when you are facing a life-altering diagnosis. Does that sort of answer it for you?
Well, you're you. You're the one that knows what you would tell yourself.
I would definitely look at who I was prior to, and where some of my goals and where and priorities were set in life. And I would say, prior to being diagnosed, I think I often tell people that this diagnosis is really, in a strange way, bettered my life. I know people don't understand that, but it has. It's changed me. It's made me fall into who I am as a person, and really, experience and find those things that are important in my life, right? And maybe I wasn't looking at those things as seriously prior to being diagnosed.
I often get asked, is there anything you would go back and change post-diagnosis? And I used to always say, oh yeah, this or that. But after 18 years of being in the HIV community, I think about anything that I would change would completely alter everything else that I've been involved in, which would alter the people that I've been in touch with and the friendships that I've made over all these years.
Yeah.
Not to mention, and not to sound like, oh, Daniel, but there's a certain point where I have to recognize the lives that not me, the life that my information and my story has touched.
Right.
Because I tell people I could be anybody else, but it's the story, it's the information, it's the experiences that are touching other people, and that makes a difference. And in the last page of my book, when that is written, I wanted to say, because I'm very proud of it, I wanted to say that I worked really hard to make an impact in the world. And
that is exactly, you said it very well there, like very eloquently there, because that's really what I fell into. When you talk about that, that's exactly it. I want to help, that through this whole process and falling into who I really am as a person. That's exactly where I want to be as well. I want to be able to, when I come to the end of this life, I want to say I made a difference. I want to be able to say that I impacted people's lives. And, and it isn't until I started doing that through my advocacy work that I really started being able to identify who I really was, right? And the true person that was coming out of me, right? Yeah. It was almost like I was, up until that point of diagnosis, I was just living life, right? I had my friend, and I didn't really value the friendships and the relationships and all of that I had around me.
Yeah. There's a journey of self-discovery, and this is going to sound very spiritual. And again, I work a lot with energy and my spirit, but I have gone through 18 years of self-discovery, and every day there's something new to discover. Even on the days when I just lay on the couch and watch television, there's something that I find new that it's just added to that toolbox that I can share later on. And after all these years, to have somebody email or message me on some of the social sites and say, I saw you speaking here. I heard you at this conference. You said this day, and it caught my attention. Yeah. And sometimes it's a video that I did, 5 years ago, and I'm not even at that space anymore, but they are. Yeah. They're at that point in their lives, and they're meeting me 5 years ago and going, yes, that's me right now. So there is a future for me. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about social media. I know social media gets a lot of crap for all the negative, but one of the most beautiful things about social media that I personally like is that we are leaving a history book or a timeline of where we were in a certain time. So people, as they're going through their journey, they're stopping at our stops and going, oh, yes. Yeah. And then they look forward and they're like, if Ross can do it, if Daniel can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I had someone come up to me at the last conference that I spoke at, and she, I walked off the panel and she caught me outside one of the halls, and she stopped me and said, I just want to let you know that your speech that you just gave, or, your when you addressed us, she said, you just made the entire conference for me. This was my moment during this conference. And I walked away saying, yes, I impacted somebody's life. And she was at that place, because when you talk about being at that place in her life, she had a family member, and all I was doing was sharing my story. And she had a family member that dealt with chronic pain and lived with chronic pain. And she said, I didn't understand. And now having you speak, she goes, now I do. And you made so I walked away from that and I said, there you go. There's my moment. I impacted that one person, and that made my conference worth, that made, I was able to impact somebody.
I don't think we can add anything more after this. No. I think you just added, and I know you got some things to do too, so I'm going to let you go. Don't hang up yet. I want to say goodbye to everybody. For everybody listening and or watching, I've been speaking with Ross McCreery, my favorite Canadian. He is an advocate for CRPS up in Canada. You can find him on all the websites. On all the social sites. I will post all the information for you guys to follow him. Please check him out. He motivates me. He inspires me. He's one of those people that I didn't think I would keep in touch with, but we ended up staying in touch. And I'm so glad we finally made time for him to be a guest. I know I sound like I'm kissing his butt, and I probably am, but I'll end it now saying thank you to my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Go check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on our network. Check me out at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find me at Daniel G. Garza. Check that out. And I guess, Ross, thank you so much for being on the show.
Not a problem. Thank you.
And for everybody listening, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.